be the four central pillars of Russian Putinite propaganda. The first pillar of Putin's propaganda is doubt about truth itself. Here we get to the heart of how this propaganda works. It wants to convert the thirst each human has for truth into resistance to accepting that anything is true. It exploits your desire not to get duped by politics, to get you to doubt everything about politics, and eventually doubt the very possibility of acquiring truthful beliefs about politics at all.
I always forget that part.
Put me in the middle. Welcome everybody to RadPod and Chill. You just heard our friend Vlad Vexler. He is a British political philosopher, and he did an interview with the RadPod team, episode 105, all about the crises in trust that the West has been undergoing and how we can repair it. And we'll be hearing highlights from that interview. But yeah, so stoked to be here. Hi, Jim. Hi, Hi-Fi. We have a very cool hour coming up for y'all. And who wants to kick us off? What's on your mind?
Go, Jim, go.
Go, Jim. Go, Jim.
I got to roll.
I don't know. Nothing's going on at all. No, seriously, like, I don't know, big picture. There's a 100% turn in the political situation from my standpoint. I haven't seen sort of unanimity and excitement and, glee about a candidate since 2008. And, that was very significant time for America, obviously. So I feel like that is all in very good shape. But I also see the panic, the desperation, they don't have any fucking answers at all for this. They're going all the way to the worst cards they can possibly play already, and none of it is hitting, and they know it. So they have a big problem. And as we've talked about a lot, this is existential for many of these people. Literally, they know that either this election goes their way or they're going to go to prison, literally. And so there's a bunch of people out there that are gunning for this thing. And we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but the Supreme Court, right now, there seems to be a kind of gauzy, self-denial about the problem that we have in the court, because they have the potential, they have the ability to force a constitutional crisis where a president gets chosen that the people not only didn't vote for the popular vote, but didn't vote for with the electoral vote. And, if that happens and it gets pushed up to the Supreme Court, guess what they're going to do? They legalize machine guns. They torment and kill women every single fucking day with their regressive insanity. They took away all of the federal government's power to regulate anything. And, now fucking Clarence Thomas has to decide, how much carbon dioxide could be in the air at one point, right? And they made the president a fucking king, knowing that this president would not take those powers seriously. Unfortunately, the next guy will. So I am both very optimistic on one side, but also even more concerned that the more nefarious elements of this are going to make a move, and we can talk about this a little bit, but for me, JD Vance was sort of like, okay. Now, you may be confused about this fucking guy because it's weird. Why did they choose the worst candidate in the history, literally the worst vice presidential candidate in the history of vice presidential candidates? He is the only person in the history of vice presidential candidates to get a negative bump after showing up at the convention. So he showed up to the convention. Nobody really liked him anyway. And then they really didn't like him after, on all sides, across. And so people are like, what the fuck? Well, it turns out that JD Vance is just Peter Thiel's android.
Yes.
It's like if Peter Thiel took a part of him and grew it in a petri dish and added a whole bunch of dumb bullshit, it would be JD Vance. And so I wrote a long article about the reason why JD Vance is in there and about his magical conversion to Catholicism in 2019 after being convinced he was gay as a child, and then he was an atheist, and then he liked climate science, and now he thinks it's all dumb, and like he's changed his names 3 fucking times. Like, why? Who is this guy? Well, the year before, Peter Thiel gave this little unit $15 million, the most money ever given by a single donor to a Senate candidate in the history of candidates or donors. Why? What's happening? Well, the year before, JD Vance converted to Catholicism and cited Peter Thiel, psychopathic accelerationist oligarch, as the reason. And so when you look into Peter Thiel and you look into JD Vance's magical conversion to Catholicism, and then you start looking at a lot of these other people around these guys, and you get to a really dark, weird fucking place. And unfortunately, I mean, there's 1.5 billion Catholics or something approaching that, right? The vast majority of Catholics have no fucking idea that there's Opus Dei and the Knights of Malta and all these weird cults that have been the long arm of the Vatican for hundreds of years and shit, that they're still running around conspiring to get close to power and then influence power, which is how they work. And so we'll talk about Alina Habba in a little bit, because that'll be fun.
Thank you for that rousing opening, Jim.
Because Alina Habba and believe it or not, I'll tease with this. Alina Habba and Peter Thiel are the same person, and I'll explain why.
I understand. So I want to thank 2 people. I want to thank JD Vance because his nomination has thrown a light on all the work that me, Jim, and Hi-Fi have been doing for years. We've been reporting on Vance. We've been reporting on Thiel. And Jim had a super viral post on his Mind Virus Substack. And I have had multiple viral posts because
virus.
What's that?
You said Mind Virus. It is not my Substack.
Mindwar.com.
Mind Virus came out of the ass of the dumb apartheid Nazi that runs X.
Well, okay, but I actually was writing about Mind Virus before Elon Musk even had a thought related to this stuff.
It's not a new idea.
No. But thank you for correcting me. It's mindwar.com, mind-war.com. Again, thank you, JD Vance, for being as horrible as you are and giving us so much good fodder because we've been writing and reporting on this stuff and telling our viewers and warning our viewers. And High Five, being from Ohio, has had a personal stake in this. We've had David Pepper on our show many times talking about this. And so it's kind of cool to see that people are paying attention. It's also kind of amusing, like all of a sudden, you know, corporate journalists just kind of discovered who these people are, apparently. But it's been good for us. But I truly want to thank the governor of the beautiful state of Minnesota, because with one word, he's given us a true fighting chance this November. As I wrote in Byline Supplement for an upcoming piece, 1 billion words have been written. 1 billion words have been written proving that Trump was working for Russia in the first term, proving what a fascist, organization he's pulling behind him. And in one word, that has produced 1 million incredible memes, we actually have a true fighting chance. And that word, of course, is weird. And I have had so much fun curating memes for my report today, including one that was made by one of Hi-Fi's OG troll crew. But it's very interesting to see how much one word can actually puncture through and start to really allow reality to come in. And I'd love for you guys to give your thoughts on that, because obviously you know what I'm talking about.
I don't know. It's fun meme to use, because I mean they're fucking weird. You got these like weird fucking people. Like if you've ever seen Dan Brown movies, right? The Da Vinci Code and shit. Like that's kind of what some of these people are into. Really, like I posted a picture of Alina Hobbs' dad in his fucking Knights of Malta black outfit with the big giant Maltese cross on it, after he got the Grand Magisterial Order of Obedience from fucking, the mothership or whatever.
It's cosplay for rich white dorks.
Well, yes, but these rich white dorks have a lot of money and a lot of power, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so what they do is stuff like produce kids and then have them get as close to power as possible, right? So the Knights of Malta, that's what they are. They're power brokers for the church. They're a quasi-nation state. And so there's only 13,500 of these fucking jackasses, and Alina Hobbs' dad is one of them. And it goes along with what happens in certain families who are very fucking dedicated to whatever their cult is, their religion, and they produce children that they sort of nurture to do what Alina Habba has done, which is sidle up to power, right?
Yeah.
Transform herself into fucking Ivanka. Did you see her?
Yeah, it's creepy.
She looked more like Ivanka than Ivanka.
It's creepy.
Really? Like, It was crazy. It was like, wow, like the white and like, it was like, Jesus.
It was actually weird.
It was very weird.
It was weird. It was weird.
I'm not a super big fan of the word weird, just because it sort of feels diminishing of the whole thing. But I also recognize that it's a flexible term, and many people have used it.
Right now in mimetic,
but it just doesn't quite get there for me,
Well, I understand. In mimetic warfare, at this point, I'll take what I can get. But I am with you, Jim, on it's kind of a wonderful pleasure to see these true creeps on their back foot and not knowing how to respond. But I also know these people, and they're vicious and they're cruel, and we don't know what type of warfare we're going to be facing. So I'm with you. Like I don't want to say cautiously optimistic. I have felt good in recent days. I love the fact that I finally have a united party. That's not something that I expected would happen overnight, and it did, and that feels really good. but I also know the cruelty that we're up against, and I don't underestimate it.
Don't underestimate Joe Biden either, because remember, it was like, it wasn't that long ago. It was like 12 hours ago. Dude got all the Russian prisoners out, all of them. Now that's good to begin with. And yes, we had to give up some Russian shitheads, but
to get Kara-Murza back.
There's plenty more. There's plenty more Russian shitheads where those came from.
Yeah.
You know, it's all PR, and so whatever. Let Putin have his PR, and we get, you know, heroes back from Russia.
Yeah.
But the other thing that it was, and this is important, was a bitch slap against Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Because Donald Trump has been saying for months,
yeah,
me and Putin, we're good together, and I'm the one who's the only one. He said this. I'm the only one who can get Gerskovich out of Russian prison, and I will get him out of Russian prison before he's inaugurated. He made this claim several times, which is a violation, by the way, of the Logan Act.
Yes.
But he apparently Biden, in the midst of getting slammed by all these fucking assholes, like talking about how incompetent he is, he was brokering a deal to get all of our guys home from Vladimir fucking Putin.
Yeah.
And it also gives me a little bit of understanding about maybe why they haven't been quite so aggressive against Putin, you know, in terms of their vocabulary. I don't know, but fucking take the gloves off now. It's time for them to take the goddamn gloves off. But in terms of good news, right? What are they going to do with that? We should just play Donald Trump saying that he's the only person to get him out of prison, and then show Evan Gerskovich getting off the plane over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Because the goal is to show that there's no beef.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a perfect place to show our first clip, because we actually brought Vlad Vexler on our show because our friend Alex Alvarova pointed us to him and showed us a clip where he talks about distinctions between Russian and Soviet propaganda. Now, just so you know, Vlad was born in Moscow. He is is now a citizen of the UK, and he's quite fascinating. We really enjoyed our conversation. It was one of the first really long form conversations we've done in quite some time. Hi-Fi, why don't you show the first clip?
Coming out of the bay and going into open water. Now, that shouldn't freak us out, in my view, beyond a certain measure, because democracies can sustain themselves in crisis for a long time without collapsing. But that is in part an organic process. We have an extraordinarily deep crisis of trust. I think the deepest crisis of trust that certainly, if you talk about Europe, that Europeans have experienced since the revolutions of 1848, not to say the biggest political crisis, we've had much worse, but at the level of trust, we're really in historic territory, almost historically unprecedented territory. And at the same time, regimes like the Russians and the Chinese, we're going to focus on the Russians today, are trying to take advantage of our vulnerability. Now, what's difficult about this is that most of what they are doing is about plugging into what already divides us, to what we are already getting toxic with each other about, and then trying to make it worse.
Word.
What he's saying there, go ahead, Hi-Fi.
Well, what's funny is Heidi and I were actually just talking about this, and what he says is what divides us, right? And if you look at the roots of what divides us as a nation, two of the biggest are misogyny and racism, and you can trace these back to the Virginia laws of the 1600s, right? When wealthy white European landowners working for the Virginia Corporation basically said that women weren't equal to men, and that black people weren't equal to white people. And those are like two of our biggest divides. And we have got to overcome that if we're ever going to get past this and beat the fascists.
Thanks, Hi-Fi.
Yeah. What he said there is really important, which is that the Russians generally don't make shit up, right? They, in other words, they don't invent things for Americans to be divided about. As he said, and Hi-Fi's right, they what they do is exploit those divisions. So if you think about their goal, it's to atomize society. It's to make us not united, to, in their own words, to reduce our national will.
Yeah.
Right. And so they look at us as a pie that's, nice and united. Okay, well, what's the easiest way to break it up, right? Sex. Split them up, and also anybody who doesn't identify as cis, target, right? Because that is a natural division between human beings. It just is, and it's been exploited for a long time. And then where do you go from there? You go to race, because now you can then break up the men and women into even further divisions, right? And then what you see with these crazy people, like some of the people I've been writing about, is you break them into even smaller divisions where they get a even more concentrated dose of some alternate reality, and eventually you've atomized your entire society. And what's different now? Why is it possible now? Well, it's the fucking internet, because we're all connected to each other all the time. And I will again go back to, where did this current social media internet come from? Who done it? Who gave Mark Zuckerberg weird?
I'm still a piece of garbage.
10 out of 10. 10. You did it. You did it. The perfect Peter Thiel moment. Thank you, sir. Who done it? Peter fucking Thiel gave this little weirdo in college, Mark Zuckerberg, who had Hot or Not for college girls.
Yeah.
Literally, that's what Facebook was.
Yeah.
People need to understand, it was Hot or Not for college girls. That's all it was. It was about objectifying people, and because if anybody who was around back then, Hot or Not was a big funny thing where you have girls and you have guys, and you rate them, and then you can see everybody's picture and their rating, and isn't it funny? That was a long time ago. It was like 25 years ago.
Wow.
Anyway, Mark Zuckerberg,
long before Yuri Milner.
Mark Zuckerberg's big fucking idea was, okay, I'm going to do that for college students.
Yeah,
and started basically pooling them together in these rich colleges. And Peter Thiel's like, I don't know what to do with that. And so he gave him $500,000 to start it, and then he brought in billions of dollars in Russian connected money.
Yeah.
From Gazprom. Like literally, the money was a hop from Gazprom.
Yeah.
It was the money that went into Facebook.
Yeah.
Right? Now you go over to Jack Dorsey, and he's been completely psyoped into this Curtis Yarvin fucking neo-reactionary nonsense that you've seen. Not to mention Elon Musk, who's literally he's like retweeting BRICS, which is like the most Putin Russian shit you can imagine. And it's because these guys, they just don't care anymore. It's just all the quiet parts are no longer quiet.
Yeah.
You mentioned Curtis Yarvin, and the thing that's kind of bugging me, because I think the scarier guy is Nick Land, because Nick Land's the guy who wrote The Dark Enlightenment And that's the one where they really just lay out the plan to tear apart civilization, right?
No, well,
Just make sure
Yarvin,
both those rich white dorks get their
yeah. So Yarvin is part of the Nerd Reich. I did not make that up, but it's
Pretty clever.
Yes. And so he started a blog under the nickname Mencius Moldbug. Now, this is crazy. Check this out. And in the year of our Lord, 2007, he wrote his first essay under Mencius Moldbug called The Argument Against Democracy. 10, and check this out, 10 red pills. So that was 2007, right? So over the years, what happened? Red Pill went from this weird fucking blog and whatnot being referred to as basic. I mean, before it became a misogyny thing, it was Curtis Yarvin saying it's an anti-democracy thing. Literally the argument against democracy, saying that all the quiet parts out loud from the very fucking beginning. And he used the term red pill. And that turned into basically a synonym for misogyny at first, because there was a giant Reddit board called Red Pill that was just rape fantasies and just the worst fucking horrible place. That kind of morphed into Gamergate and all the rest of it, right? And all of these things, end up being connected. And it's a very Peter Thiel's. I call him the closest literal approximation to the Antichrist for a reason. I am an atheist, but if there was an Antichrist, it would really be this guy, because he has done so much damage in such covert, nasty fucking ways that it's really hard to, possibly talk about it all in one sitting. But here's what I'm saying. The most important thing to know is that if J.D. Vance gets anywhere near the fucking White House, he will become the president, and that means Peter Thiel will become the president, and that means
that's scary.
The fucking Fourth Reich is on. Like that guy has absolutely no conscience whatsoever, and believes in his dark little heart that all of our liberalness and democracy, all of that shit needs to be wiped away so that he can rebuild it in his fucking libertarian, like psychotic, Nazi image, with people like fucking Curtis Yarvin and Chuck Johnson and Matt Gaetz and the rest of his Nazi crew that he lets run around the internet. That's who's going to be in charge of the United States of America. Let me reiterate that, because Donald Trump will absolutely not make it. He will not make it. Well, I don't even know if he's making it.
I know. So I did a little snooping around on what was being written by Gore Vidal on Ayn Rand in 1961. And I found Peter Thiel plagiarizing Ayn Rand, because, of course, you guys know that he said democracy and freedom are incompatible. Well, Ayn Rand wrote capitalism and altruism are incompatible. So clearly it was riffing off of Rand. But it was interesting because in that 1961 article, Gore Vidal wrote that trolls walk the American night and there's storms ahead, which I found interesting.
I mean, Gore knew his shit. Ayn Rand was just a grifter. She was like another.
I realize that.
I know you do. She was just another. She was another Blavatsky, right? Blavatsky started Theosophy, which bloomed into New Age, and plus a whole bunch of other really hard. similar sort of line of bullshit.
I just find it interesting because, again, like, people evolve beyond that, but I don't think Peter Thiel has. I think he really believes this. And I think that, unfortunately, because we've helped make him so wealthy, that he's had a lot of impact, as Elon Musk has, on young people in America and elsewhere. And I'm hoping that what we're seeing in recent weeks with the weirdness is the beginning of a rebuking and hopefully a return to some sort of normalcy, craving in a way. And that would be a good place to see our second clip, unless you want to comment on what I just said, because
is a very central motivation for Putin's foreign policy. There is a tendency to think in international relations realist circles that Putin is primarily concerned with national security. And I think that a conception of national security that is quite weird and mystical does play a part in Putin's foreign escalation. But at least half of the motivation of that regime is about regime security and preserving power. And one of the things that we are seeing in Ukraine is Putin understanding that an independent Ukraine with moderately functional democratic institutions, even without membership of any Western alliance, is an existential threat to him.
The biggest threat to Vladimir Putin is a functional democracy anywhere.
yes.
Because it really is an ideological thing. There's a, and I'm going to write more about this, but the anti-communism idea, right, that we're fighting the communists, has been this persistent theme for over the last century. And don't get me wrong, communism's fucking bad. Maduro is a real communist. And fucking Venezuela, he's been a dictator, and there's all kinds of crazy shit going on there. Soviet Union was just a dank, horrible fucking shithole. Not that the new Russia is much better. Communism is bad, but the way that it is used is as everything that isn't me gaining power is communism, right? Democrats are communists. All progress is basically just communism in disguise, and this has been going around since before World War II.
Yeah.
But I will remind people, Joe McCarthy was anti-communism, right? It was anti-communism, which is literally the same line that Hitler used. He was anti-communism, fighting the communists. They also happen to be Jewish, right? But that always comes next. Mm-hmm. So as one example, and I'll shut up, when Hitler gave his first radio address, he didn't say the word Jewish at all. He was fighting against the communists. He was fighting against the communists and the Bolsheviks who were taking over the country, right? It wasn't, and you know what else he said? He's going to protect Germany's status as a Christian nation.
That sounds familiar.
In his first radio address, again, hiding his ultimate goal, which is genocide, behind the same fucking words that they are using against us now. And it's not a coincidence. It's basically, when you get down to the sort of guts of it, it's people who crave power above humans, and then everybody else. And so they label anything that has to do with people giving a shit about each other, sharing anything with each other, being empathetic. All of those things are completely antithetical to their entire ideology and their entire frame of mind. And I think, for me, that's the sort of, that's the darkest underbelly of all this is, there are actually people who are willing to see lots of us die in order to gain power. And unfortunately, they're pretty fucking close.
I just wanted to add a little historic footnote to what you said. Who was by McCarthy's side that whole time, but Trump's mentor, Roy Cohn, who became the lawyer for all the mobsters of New York City, as well as Fred Trump and Donald Trump, and also mentored Roger Stone.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird shit,
Yeah.
There is a relatively extensive list of contacts.
It's not that weird when you think about it.
Yeah.
Look, from an anthropological sense, and I know this.
Wait, what just happened? I was
generational knowledge,
okay.
Right? Like, how many people have their grandmother's biscuit recipe, or they know how to make their aunt's fried chicken? Generational knowledge is passed down. The generational knowledge of these dirty tricksters, of these con men, of these corrupted, whatever they are, right? They learn. And then when they learn, they build on top of that.
Yeah.
That's what they continue to do. And that's why, like, I like to talk about vulnerabilities. I like to talk about hacking. That's like one of my things, right? And here's something I don't think enough people are talking about is just how many pro-Trump election deniers are in positions of power to cause problems with the election. Like, what are we doing about that?
Well, if I may, I have been screaming about this for fucking 6 months.
Yeah, you have.
That this is the plan, right? And so this is one part of it, which is to infiltrate state legislatures, because the state legislatures are where the electors get certified. There's all kinds of mechanics that have to do with every fucking state and Congress in order for the peaceful transition of power to happen. And if you recall, they worked real hard, right, with all the fake elector schemes, and there's boxes of things, and people were breaking into places and all that shit. I was just amateur hour, man. That was nothing.
Right.
Because now they realized, oh, well, what we needed was the legislature to decertify it for us because we complain about, oh no, there's too many people that we don't like around this mailbox. Shit, it's a fraud, right? It doesn't matter because you have these America First people in these legislatures who will absolutely just be illegal and anti-constitutional because they have the power to do it, which is the thing that we haven't grasped yet. If there is a possibility for them to do something, if you're relying on sanity or norms or like how we usually do things around here, you're a fucking idiot. And we have like not very long to go, and I just don't see a lot of people sort of coming to grips with this. So here's how this plays out briefly. Mike Flynn, everybody else, they got a bunch of poll watchers, and they got people causing trouble, and they got fucking ops in the elections, and they're creating all kinds of fucking havoc, right? Say it's in Georgia, which is, being very purple. It's a reason why they're in there. Let's say it's in Georgia, and that goes to Joe, right? They're in there with their poll watchers, and they're mad. And we've got the red mirage, the red mirage, which is when it looks like the Republicans have won everything, and then all the Democrat votes come in from the mailboxes because we're sane and we do shit, in a way that makes fucking sense.
Right.
So Bob's your uncle, oh my God. And, you know, Flynn's on Twitter doing his thing and Q wakes back up. I don't fucking know, right? They're going to go absolutely bonkers on this stuff. And then they've got all these lawyers ready to go with their pre-made sort of complaints about whatever it is that they cook up.
Right.
Now you've got the Georgia legislature willing, and the reason why this isn't news is because they're signaling that they are willing to overthrow the election, to overthrow the government, the voters of their own fucking state, in order to get Donald Trump in power. So what happens is they send it there and they decertify, and then people sue. They're like, that's fucked up. You can't do that. We voted for Kamala Harris. And so what happens? What happens, everybody? Goes up, to the Supreme fucking Court.
It's a problem.
And the Supreme Court's like, ooh, there was definitely too many people around that mailbox. You know what? We're going to have to agree with Georgia this time. I'm so sorry. So sorry. And what happens then is we get a contested election, because that would take Joe Biden's count. It's going to be close. You don't get excited. Get out the vote.
You said Joe Biden. You meant Kamala, but I know.
Kamala, I keep doing that because Kamala.
Yeah.
It goes under 270, and it goes to this Byzantine process in the House where there's one vote per state. And if you've ever looked in the middle of the country, there's a bunch of Republican states with not many people and lots of counties.
Like Wyoming.
And so all of the so Wyoming has there are more people within like 500 yards of me than there are.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Literally, and fucking
totally true.
And Wyoming gets as many as the entire state of California.
It's bullshit. It's bullshit.
So what has happened here? What will happen in this sequence? And nobody has given me any reason why this won't happen. Nobody can. This will happen unless we do something to prevent it.
Right.
So anyway, they decertify. Now it goes to the House. The House, there's a big ruckus, and it's all a big pain in the ass. But of course, the House and the states vote for Donald Trump. Now what the fuck do we do? Now what do we do? Because Joe Biden has two choices, and forgive me, but he's got two choices. He can be one of two historical figures. He can be Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln said when Dred Scott, tried to get implemented and all that shit after, he got elected, he was just like, nope, and just ignored the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And then people don't know this. He expanded it in order to basically get it back into some kind of shape.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it sparked the civil fucking war. Right? Okay, so that's one option. Right? Because what Joe Biden would have to do is basically say, sorry, no, we're not doing that. And then now you've got a lot of gun people. Really, I'm telling you, it's bad. And that's what Eric Prince will tell you himself. And I posted about it. Yeah. Anyway, so that's a very, very bad fucking situation. The other person he could be is Franz von Papen, who and we were talking about the Knights of Malta.
I feel like Franz von Papen has to be a Radpod drinking game or something. Every time you say it, somebody needs to take a shot.
Franz von Papen was a Knight of Malta, Catholic priest, who was the Chancellor of Germany. And then he handed the chancellorship of Germany to Hitler voluntarily after the Reichstag fire and a whole bunch of other very sketchy shit. This dude was like, fine. Okay, if you really want Germany, you can have it. Like, we don't he will literally be in a situation where he has to choose between a constitutional crisis like we literally have not seen since 1861, or voluntarily handing over our democracy and potentially global democracy to a guy that is completely demented and fully in control by the worst enemies of the United States, foreign and domestic.
Word.
So that's a bad thing. That's a very, and I'm sorry for that painting that dark picture, but I'm going to keep pushing on this because somebody needs to tell me how I'm wrong.
Yeah, someone needs to tell us what our plan is. What's our plan? What's our plan?
And I have a simple one. Like, he's the king now, so just lock the fucking doors.
Lock the doors of the Supreme Court.
Just lock the doors until we get a new Congress in play. And then, you know, assuming we do our job, get out the vote and figure out how to fucking, you know, it's gonna be a big ass ruckus, but it's gonna be less of a ruckus than what will go on if we let these motherfuckers back in the building.
So I love that. And one more footnote. I've said this on the show before. What do Roy Cohn and Jared Kushner have in common? They visited their, elders in prison. Roy Cohn visited his uncle in prison, and Jared Kushner visited his father in prison, and they probably learned a few things while they were on those visits that they then applied into their life skills. So, yeah. I came up with a slogan for the Trump-Vance campaign. Let me see if I can remember it. I think it was, we do good things for rich men. That's it. That's what they fucking do. That's what they do.
Yep. The whole thing, you know, it can come down to a class war if you, that's another way of fucking looking at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but forgive me. The immigrants that we need to worry about are the PayPal fucking mafia.
Yeah.
Who came into who came into our country and then defrauded themselves into a bunch of fucking money that they're now weaponizing against the democracy that made them rich. Fuck them. Fuck them. Why, like, you want to worry about some immigrants, worry about those.
Yeah.
I'm still a piece of garbage.
Oh my God. Perfect place. Well done.
I think that was two perfect tens.
Yeah, look at you go, high five.
It's because the Olympics is going on. It's
right.
It's
high five sticking his landing. So let's see our third clip from
I want to see high five sticking landing.
Distinction is that there's a post-truth story which invites you to doubt everything, and that's Russian propaganda. Soviet propaganda does give you an alternate ideological picture of reality and wants you to believe in it to the exclusion of other things. So the aim is persuasion with Soviet propaganda. With Russian propaganda, the aim is depoliticization, the generation of apathy and confusion.
Yeah, it's a difference between propaganda and psyops.
Yeah. I encourage everybody to watch the entire interview. I look forward to watching it again and relaying it to the Betty Dangerous community. There was so much good stuff there, and what a very kind person. He's overcome and deals with a really pernicious illness, but it has given him the time to put a lot of work and energy into political philosophy, which, like Peter Pomerantsev, we can all learn so much from. Yes, Jim.
I can't remember what I was going to say. It's the difference between dropping leaflets in a country and, you know, pummeling someone 18 hours a day with trauma porn and you know, coercive, you know, psychologically damaging material. Right. That's the fundamental difference that I think he means. And you know, unfortunately, you can define the entire world right now as just being one giant psychological war that we have not declared yet.
Yeah, true. I would love Hi-Fi to give us a quick briefing on Venezuela. And then, Jim, do you want to give us a briefing on the Olympics? Because I know you've been watching.
Okay.
Well, Venezuela, Maduro is an authoritarian. Even though he claims to be a communist, he's a fascist. The people are sick of his shit. They're going to overthrow them. The PSYOPs operators in the northern hemisphere, particularly Elon Musk, like Elon Musk is threatening him to a fight now or some bullshit, and it's the Zuckerberg act all over. Oh, let's have a fight, rah rah. We're not on the same side. No, you're a bunch of fascist tools. It's bullshit. The people of Venezuela should do what they're gonna do, and Maduro should go.
Well, there's two competing governments, because the United States recognized the opposition party, and Putin recognized Maduro.
Wow.
He invited Maduro as president of Venezuela to Moscow.
Wow.
And Wagner is in Venezuela.
Wow. Allegedly.
I'm not.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, all I know is that if that does not sound like a world war to you, then I don't know what is. And I think it's also very important that people review our recent RadPod episode with Omar Paez, who explained to us what happened in the recent election in Mexico. And he adamantly said, don't look at left or right, look at authoritarians versus those who are pushing democratic governance. Don't look at left or right. That's where it gets confusing. Look at who's giving you authoritarian policies versus who's giving you democratic policies, and it should be more clear. And he also said that he fears that Mexico may have just had its last free election. And I think that should haunt us here in America, particularly when Donald Trump is telling people that they won't have to vote anymore. Take him at his word.
It still amuses me that people don't think that there's that. Oh no, it'll be bad, but we'll get through it. No, we won't. No, you're just being ignorant and dangerously so. We will not. These people are playing for keeps, and that's why this particular moment is both so energizing and also like. I'm just like, shields up, guys. Like,
yeah, right.
Okay, so this brings us to my problem with weird. Yes, weird is mimetically effective. Weird is funny. Weird is helping build momentum behind Harris. Weird does not capture the threat that these people are. Again, I would return to the fact that Donald Trump is a rapist who attempted a coup. Is that weird? Yeah.
I knew Hi-Fi would get that in there at some point this hour.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get really weird, read some of the testimony from alleged victims of Donald Trump.
Yeah. Also,
you want like, no, seriously, do you want to see some weird shit? And regardless of what you think of those particular allegations, and in my view, I've watched the testimony of these people, and I believe them.
Yeah, too. Yeah.
I like they were saying stuff that they shouldn't have known that turned out to be correct 8 years later. And this guy was best friends with Jeffrey fucking Epstein, who, by the way, had lots and lots of meetings with Peter fucking Thiel, had several meetings with Elon Musk, and there's allegedly an email where Elon Musk, where Jeffrey Epstein's asked him, how was kung fu practice with Ghislaine?
Yeah.
Okay.
It just reminds me of the kung fu grip, can't help but go there.
Hey, do you guys remember who had multiple appointments on his calendar with Jeffrey Epstein?
Peter Thiel.
I'm still a piece of garbage.
I just said that.
He just said that. He was probably in the chat.
I was high in the chat.
So
repetition never hurts.
Speaking of weird, Project 2025, I think it's weird that people are finally starting to get hip to it. I know that we've been reporting on it for some time. I did a massive report on it last year. But I'm glad, and I'm really enjoying the walk back. I'm enjoying the leader of the Heritage Foundation hoisting himself on his own petard. I'm enjoying all of that because again, I guess better late than never, but it still is a recipe for the Fourth Reich. It is a recipe for the destruction of democracy. And just because they're walking it back doesn't mean they don't mean it and don't plan to enforce it. So,
if anybody's seen Agenda 47, where she's like, no, Project 2025, I don't know anything about it, except all of my people are in it, and literally all of the people, all of them. All of Donald Trump's people are all of them. He's mentioned in the document.
Yeah.
300
Oh, yeah.
It's ridiculous to try and disavow.
Oh, right?
And he said, and he used it as a moment to say, this is what happens when you mess with Donald Trump and you try to take his juice. So what his official one is Agenda 47. Go to the fucking website. It's the same thing. It's just in bad article form instead of like Heritage Foundation consulting speak. That's it. It's the same fucking thing, and he's just trying to rebrand. Now, the last thing. Project 2025 isn't about that dumb document, and I shouldn't say dumb because it's important to see what they're fucking thinking. But the actual Project 2025 is a very large database full of MAGA people who are willing to replace the whole government.
Yeah.
All of it. There's some like people who do little shit that but everybody from, manager up is going to be replaced by MAGA people.
Yeah.
All of it. And Project 2025 has been basically a honeypot for getting a whole bunch of contact information to vet people for the Fourth Reich. That is the problem. And so the leader of Project 2025, Paul Dans or something, I think his name, stepped down, and guess who got put in there? Kevin Roberts, the guy who said it'll be bloodless if you can keep it, libs or whatever. And also, by the way, turns out has close ties to Opus Dei.
That's weird.
No way. Opus Dei being the crazy ass cult that Peter Thiel also is very close to, like very close. Peter Thiel was, for people who haven't read my article yet, was close friends to Catholic priest Arne Panula from the time he was a young pup in Stanford, when Arne Panula, Catholic priest, was head of the Opus Dei house. mid-40s, head of Opus Dei priest, meet Peter Thiel. And for the next 30 fucking years, they're friends. So much that Peter Thiel is in Arne Panula's obituary, written by Knight of Malta, Opus Dei, Austin Ruse. I used to troll on Twitter, but that's a whole other fucking
So
Yeah.
So anyway, so Peter Thiel had a lifelong relationship with this Catholic priest. So who's Arne Panula? Arne Panula lived with Jose Maria Escriva. Who the fuck is that? The founder of Opus Dei. So Jose Maria Escriva was part of the Falangist movement that overturned a young Republican democracy in Spain. And I had to catch up on my fucking Spanish Civil War shit, I have to admit. But, you know, you can do it. Anyway, Escriva was part of the Falangist movement, which contained Francisco Franco. Francisco Franco went on to become the dictator of Spain. And a lot of people don't really remember Spain's dictatorship. A Catholic dictatorship. Like a theocracy run basically by the Catholic Church. And one of the people who was in the administration of Francisco Franco was Jose Maria Escriva. Jose Maria Escriva was also a big fan of lots of other Latin American dictators like Augusto Pinochet and Alberto Fujimori and a bunch of these other guys. But anyway, where the fuck was I? Oh, I was talking about Escriva. So Escriva then went to live after Francisco got kicked out. Jose Maria Escriva was like, oh, it's no fun anymore. It's not a fascist dictatorship anymore. Let me move to America and become the fucking head of Opus Dei house at Stanford. Again, odd, I don't know. But after he became head of the Opus Dei house at Stanford, after living with the founder of Opus Dei, he went on to be the head of Opus Dei in the United States, the vicar of Opus Dei. So Arne Panula now, again, lifelong friends all the way through with Peter Thiel, became the head of Opus Dei. And then he became the head of the Catholic Information Center, which is a whole other thing, which, you know, it is literally the K Street lobby for Opus Dei. Yes. They have their own lobby. It's called the Catholic, and it's like, oh, come to our library and hang out and read books. Except it's with like Leonard Leo and Barr. So Leonard Leo on the board of the Catholic Information Center. That you don't get to be that unless you're in Opus Dei.
Wow.
So Leonard Leo is a proud member of both Opus Dei and the Knights of Malta. As we found out on our show, he is especially wants to make sure people know that. And if you look at the people that he's put on the Supreme Court, right? People who have taken women's rights away, who legalized machine guns 5 months before the most fraud election in American history. Like, there's a reason for this. And it's because all of these people have no loyalty to America, much less democracy or any of that fucking liberal shit. This is for them a spiritual holy war, and the vow, the oath that they owe allegiance to, they think to themselves is way above any of our cute little democracy. We're just an inconvenience for these people, and they feel like they're you know, right on the edge of being able to topple us over, and you know, fuck that.
So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for enjoying that hellscape. I sure as shit enjoyed it. Also, Jim, no, thank you for all the work that you do and all the knowledge that you drop. I want to mark this occasion to note that this is the third anniversary of the first time I interviewed Jim Stewartson. 3 years ago, August 10th was our first published article, A Brainwashed Death Cult. That was in Byline Times. And so I just want to mark these moments. And the other thing I want to say is my pinned post at Betty Dangerous is about bureaucratic demons, lessons from the Third Reich. And I spent the weekend investigating the architect of the final solution, Reinhard Heydrich. And what Jim is just talking about are the bureaucratic demons. When he's talking about the people willing to replace, skilled employees, those are the bureaucratic demons that we often don't see that actually would be willing to usher in the Fourth Reich. And I just wanted to point that out. The last thing I want to say is after the ear incident, I just want to say that there were all of these fucking reporters saying there's a new softer Trump. He's going to pivot. And it's like 8 years ago, that was the shit. 8 years ago, no one's going to be pivoting. We're talking about the Fourth Reich. We're talking about looking at what Jim was just describing, which is the bureaucratic demons that are willing to do this type of work. And ain't nobody pivoting.
No. But look, I remain optimistic. I keep telling people I'm not in this to lose.
No.
Fuck that shit.
No.
And I have felt much worse about our chances. Let's put it that way.
Me too.
But again, that is no reason to put your guard down or to work any less hard. Like, I'll say it again. This is go time. It is time to leave it on the field. Like, don't fuck around with this. Take the knowledge that you have from wherever you've gotten it and go do something constructive to contribute to the overwhelming victory that we absolutely need at the ballot box, but also to make sure that your local, state, federal election, all that stuff around you, do everything you can to keep a side eye on that whole process and make sure nobody's fucking with it.
And one thing, this is a perfect place to cue up our final clip. One thing that our guest, Vlad Vexler, said is one of the ways you can find a connection with somebody who is on an opposite political spectrum from you, because we can't pretend all those millions of MAGA members aren't there. They're there. But he said one way we can begin to reconnect with them is over community issues. So what Jim just said about your local community, there are ways that you can actually reach across into that cult and find some common ground and start to lure people back to the side of sanity. High Fidelity, final clip or final thoughts or both?
Final clip, and then I'll give you final thoughts.
Democracies are coming out of the bay, but we won't sink. Things will get bumpy, but that doesn't mean that we're going to drown. So try to not freak out, because the vessels that you are in patchy waters, but they're also quite resilient, and there are still things that we can do, and it's still possible to talk about the future of our democracies in a way that's at the same time truthful and hopeful. So please don't give up.
So final thoughts. We've been doing this for years, the three of us on the screen. And I want to be honest with our audience. We're still going, but fuck, are we tired? We need the audience just to start carrying this shit, right? Take 5 people to go vote with you. Anything, something, right? We talked a lot about Opus Dei and Franco, and it reminded me of Guillermo del Toro. Made a movie called Pan's Labyrinth. And you want to see what life is like under Opus Dei people and fascism?
Ooh.
Watch that movie. 97 days left, people. Fight for
Let's
your life.
go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.